So do you remember the horrific story of the man who ploughed his car into a crowd in Liverpool during the Premier League trophy ceremony? Well, he has been sentenced to 21 years. But look at how GMB have framed the perpetrator.
What was your immediate reaction as a professional in the business?
Yes, good question. So I've worked in criminal defence since 2016, so coming up to a decade. I've represented murderers and they have received a much lesser sentence than what he has received. I appreciate the fact that there is a substantial amount of victims in this case and there's many mitigating factors as well as aggravating, and his actions are inexcusable. I am not excusing his actions, OK?
No, we're talking about the sentence.
Yeah,
not about the verdict.
Yeah, in respect to the conviction, that's not the problem, it's the sentence.
So it shocked
and
you when you heard that?
I would say it is unjustifiable, it is excessive. And that's just as a lawyer, in my practice, I've seen sentences, I've represented murderers who have received a much more lenient sentence than he has.
And is that partly because when he set out in his car that day, he wasn't intending to do what he ended up doing, but some kind of red mist descended on him. So you think that that's different from a murderer premeditatingly planning a killing and then carrying it out? You see, that's the key difference.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it makes a difference between another aggravating and or mitigating factor. But it's more than that. You know, he didn't commit any offences for over 30 years. He's been addressed as the perfect family man, not a good family man, the perfect family man, a diamond. Everyone that knows him only has good to say about him. So really, if I was the victim, and again, I'm not excusing this horrific incident, but it's more of the, why did he commit this offence? How can we address it?
Right.
We're not excusing it. How can we address it? Because what
Interesting.
we've done is we've thrown him into prison. What's going to happen? He's going to, practically speaking, he's going to end up serving half the time, if not less, subject to his character in prison and behaviour, and he's released. Do we have a better citizen for the public, or is he going to get angrier?
I mean, you cannot be serious. The tagline on this segment reads, "Is the sentence too harsh?" I mean, the way in which this is framed, I think is racist, right? Think about it. A white British man committed a disgusting crime of driving into a crowd, injuring multiple people. That is attempted murder. So answer me this. Would they really have the same conversation if this was a Muslim? Because he's a white British person, the conversation is, well, he hasn't committed a crime for 30 years. Richard Madeley says maybe there was no intention, but a red mist descended over him. Do you really think you would hear the same excuses again if the conversation was around a Muslim? His immigration status would be called into question. His faith would be called into question. There would be round-the-clock news on how this was a terror attack. Yet we have a guest on there saying, well, murderers got less, so maybe this was too harsh. Now, to me, this isn't a discussion on whether it was too harsh or not. You know, the point of this video is that these questions are only asked based on the perpetrator. I even think if this person was black and it was nothing to do with religion, the framing would still be different. You'll still hear about integration from different communities. You'll hear the classics such as, oh, maybe the dad's not present. You know, all of the tropes. You know, it's kind of given this meme. You know, this is the meme of a white man killing his entire family, and the photo they use is him, you know, as a family man. So look at this image. The perpetrator is Paul Doyle. And for many news outlets and headlines, they've used the image on the left rather than the image on the right. They've described him as a family man. And especially with Richard Madeley saying that, you know, he had no intentions, a red mist descended on him, kind of painting him out as a guy who's a normal, nice man, but something just went wrong. Whereas this guy is a violent thug. So he's had previous convictions and a military discharge. In 1989, he committed a military offence in regards to common assault. He then got in a fight in 1991. In 1992, he was convicted of 2 more military offences, including using violence to a superior officer. He was then convicted of criminal damage. And then in 1994 was jailed for 12 months after biting off the ear of another man while in a fight. That's not discussed in the GMB video clip. So the remainder of the video is President of Law Society and solicitor Stephanie Boyce, and she explains why the sentence was given.
I think what a lot of people watching will think is he committed a terrible act and there was intent. That's part of the conviction. but remarkable that Roisin references cases where someone has taken someone's life by intentionally murdering them, and they have received a minimum term in prison, which is less than 21 years. Can you just explain that for people watching who think you can take a life and serve less time?
Well, absolutely. Can I firstly say that my thoughts are with the many affected by this senseless act. To start with, the minimum term that Mr Doyle would have faced, my understanding is 12 years. But when you take into account the gravity and the scale, over 134 individuals affected, physically, psychologically, the trauma inflicted that will live with many for the rest of their lives, as well as the life-changing disabilities that some have suffered. So to put that into context, and I think I saw somewhere that somebody divided it up and said it represents about 3 months for every individual who's been affected. So if you take into account the gravity and scale, 21 years and 6 months is, I do not believe, is too harsh. It is proportionate.
That's interesting, because when you parcel it up like that, those who might think it's too harsh would probably think, I imagine, 3 months per victim is not harsh enough.
Absolutely. And, of course, there are some who say that some of those individuals did not suffer physical injury, but the psychological trauma, and it wasn't just the 134 individuals that we know about. There were 4 individuals who were trapped under this 2-ton vehicle, 2 children, an individual in their 70s. The scale of the panic that was caused, where individuals started to scatter because they thought, that it was a potential terrorist effect, and so forth. But we know from the victims' statements that were read out in court the enduring trauma of these individuals, and what this sentence will allow is, yes, it brings a sense of justice to them, but it will also perhaps allow some closure that they can move on. But given the scale of the rehabilitation, the care and the support that these individuals will need.
So to me, that was a very reasonable response and kind of makes clear why he got 21 years. But it's still wild to me how this story has been framed, because our media is a complete and utter joke.